So we are live.
Okay. Namaste and a very good morning to everyone. I welcome you all to week 1 of Pune and Ahmedabad SAHAS chapter today on 27 June 2020. We also have with us today IIHM Ahmedabad team who joins us for the week 1 of the SAHAS chapter. And I, along with the whole IIHM fraternity, would like to take this opportunity to welcome all the advisory members and the students of batch 2017 and batch 2018 from Pune and Ahmedabad campus. What a great way to start the weekend by seeing you all here. I'd like to address the students first. So students, we appreciate all those efforts which you've put in for all 3 years, right from the first day of, that nervousness you had, entering the classroom in the first year, and along with that, the apprehension you had for appearing for your exams in the third year. You've been there and you've done that, okay? I would also like to quote lines from the commencement speech of former US President Barack Obama, and where he stresses on the need of this generation, okay, as we call them as millennials, okay, this generation to grow up faster compared to the other generations because of the challenging times we are going through. Okay, he says the times are unprecedented, which has led to so much of uncertainty that no one, okay, is going to now tell you that you are too young to understand this, or no one's going to say to you that this is not the way we do it. Okay?
I know. So no, Harshal or...
Sorry. Also quoting another popular Bollywood number here for the students here. This was by Manoj Muntasir. Okay, this is for you students. In खाली खाली जेबों में इरादे बेहिसाब है, छोटी छोटी आंखों में बड़े बड़े से ख्वाब है, सजा दे मेरी राह तू, खोल दे अपनी बाह तू, आ रहा हूँ मैं जिंदगी, आ रहा हूँ मैं. Okay. With that note, I call upon my co-host Amandeep to take over and take the session ahead. Over to you, Amandeep sir.
Thank you, Kunal sir, and that's such a lovely start to another week. And at the onset, I welcome all the guests and thank you so much, everybody, for logging in. And this is such a great initiative that has been taken up in today's time. So, to start off the flow of events, I will not say anything further. Let me just quickly take you to a small introduction video, which will take us through the journey of the SAHAS launches throughout, which has happened throughout all our campuses. So this is a very quickie, short 8 minutes ka video. So let's quickly have a look at the video and.
SAHAS is a commitment, SAHAS is a promise, SAHAS is courage, and SAHAS is what IIHM stands for.
IIHM is a new initiative.
SAHAS is a great new initiative by IIHM. For SAHAS, this is a great initiative by IIHM.
The amazing new concept of IIHM SAHAS.
Gentlemen, good evening. My name is Major Aditi and I'm from Bangalore. I'm an ex-Indian Army officer from Army Service Corps. It is completely my honor to be sharing few words from the core of my heart. I'm very grateful to IIHM and SAHAS for this lovely and noble initiative that they have done for you all.
I'm very happy that you're conducting SAHAS. The term SAHAS in Hindi means courage. So please be emboldened by the fact that the hotel industry will regain its glory and its charm sooner than later, although the wait has been a little prolonged.
Hi everyone, congratulations for a very significant day. In short, entrepreneurship is something that dwells within. You can't really say I'm going to become an entrepreneur. You have to cultivate it from within. It's a journey that starts from a small idea, and as everyone said, it can start in the back of in the back room in a garage. You can start anywhere, but you have to fuel it, and then it takes commitment, because the trials and tribulations of an entrepreneur are not easy. You have to really
First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Bose with this amazing initiative. Be happy with this current generation having this kind of opportunity. I would say take due advantage of this kind of opportunity that everyone has now.
Let me congratulate IIHM Hyderabad and IIHM fraternity as a whole for creating something like this. Dr. Bose, he has given great insights that you as an organization are planning to have a purpose point to help your students or alumni to set up and work on their dreams.
Knowing that the cell, the entrepreneurship cell is already starting with funds is like so exciting for me, because as a startup owner, I know finding funds is the biggest job after having an idea. So all the best to all the students who are listening to this wonderful news from Dr. Bose.
I must say, hats off to Dr. Bose. Such a noble thought. The SAHAS actually, to me, comes from Dr. Bose. You must have the guts to read.
Very happy to see this initiative from IIHM. One thing is for sure, as I said, this is the greatest opportunity ever as a student you get, because outside, once you step out, nobody's going to pat you like what IIHM is actually handling and trying to do this. So
साहस is encourage, courage, and English में उसको risk भी कहते हैं. So Gujarat and India is a land of entrepreneurs. Come up with some brilliant idea, take advantage of this wonderful step from the IIHM, and I am sure you will make a brilliant career.
This is an excellent platform which the school is giving everyone to perform. And my first point actually was that everyone is pretty lucky enough that they are able to get a fund which is basically ready for it, and you just need to think over that what is a good idea, what an idea generation can happen through the whole process of it.
It's a really good initiative which Dr. Bose has taken to motivate the students, the new students which are there, and you can start your own business. You have ready fund with you. That is the main thing, because without fund, nothing can go.
And I'm flattered to and touched that you asked me to be a part of the advisory board for I think it's an incredible initiative, and I'm really looking forward.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to all of you for starting this initiative. I think this is the best time to be an entrepreneur, and I would like to congratulate all of you and thank Dr. Bose for starting this initiative, and to announce that he has taken off a burden from the young students' mind that how are they going to fund this fund an idea if they at all have an idea. That is
fantastic idea with a lovely carrot at the end of it for any entrepreneur, any young entrepreneur. And this is the time, obviously, when things are bad and a lot of creative things come out of a bad situation. So I think it's an amazing initiative. I'm very happy to be part of this.
It's not about how hard you can hit, but it's about how hard you can get hit and still keep moving forward, and that's how winning is done. So I do believe in that completely, and I'm really happy of this initiative. I look forward to work in this in the coming years as well. So all the best. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Dr. Bose. I think it's a great forum to get everybody together and motivate the next generation who's actually going to be the foundation.
Thank you for your invitation to be a part of the advisory council here for this great initiative. My dear friend and associate Suvarna Bose. Dr. Bose is one of the most charming and most motivating men that I've known in the last few years. Dr. Bose, great initiative, heartiest congratulations, and wishing SAHAS all the success that it possibly can deserve. You are a very giving leader, and I must say that we all learn from your initiative.
I'm going to focus on entrepreneurship because I think SAHAS as an initiative, which is extremely admirable as to what it's focusing on, is focused on entrepreneurship. I equate an entrepreneur to be a person who jumps off a cliff and builds an aircraft on the way down. There are always 1,000 reasons to not do something and only really one good ever reason to do it. And for an entrepreneur, it's very important to focus on that one.
And
Let me first of all thank Dr. Bose and Abdullah for a fantastic initiative which you guys have taken, which is also happening at this time. And when you talk about SAHAS, I would say this is one of the initiatives which has come out when everybody is lying at the low levels on that side.
And we entrepreneurs in India. We need businesses, we need startups, we need investment coming into India in a huge way. And this is the right time. I think, Subarna, you started this initiative, and I'm sure with time and hand-holding and with all your good intentions and your team's intentions, many entrepreneurs will be coming out of this initiative. So it's a great start.
This is the best time to encourage entrepreneurs, and I welcome this initiative.
And congratulations, Dr. Bose, on this wonderful initiative that you've had, for amongst the many, many such initiatives that I keep reading about. So it's great to be on board SAHAS.
SAHAS is a promise. SAHAS is a dream. SAHAS is a commitment from all of us, from the entire team IIHM all over India, with our 8,000 students and 600 faculty and staff members, to get the students the culture of the dare to do, the culture of doing something, that get the student into that spirit of entrepreneurship.
Nice. Thank you, everybody. And so that was a small video with the glimpses of the campus launches of SAHAS throughout all our campuses. Now, moving ahead with today's session, I would first like to call Mr. Rupinder Singh Khurana on the spotlight so that he could welcome all our guests, all our students, and we start off with the session. Joining us in today's session, we also have our Ahmedabad campus. So we have the Ahmedabad campus directors and the faculty members also. And so now may I request Mr. Khurana to take up the stage and welcome our guests. Sir, over to you.
Thank you so much, Amandeep. I take this opportunity to wish everyone a very good morning. And I'm really looking forward to this session. You know, last week, we created history because for the very first time in the history of a hospitality education provider, an entrepreneurship cell was launched. And this was an initiative of International Institute of Hotel Management and Dr. Subarna Bose, the brainchild behind the IIHM. He's the one who told us that this is the way forward. We really have to move into entrepreneurship sphere because a lot of our students will need to create jobs instead of just going and seeking jobs. So for all of you students, last week we had a grand launch ceremony, of course, all online. Because of the pandemic situation, we are unable to create or organize an event which is done in a place where all of you can come and see the people. However, I think technology today has changed a lot of things, and today we are, I think, much more better connected than what we were pre-COVID era, because we've taken the pains to adapt and adopt technology and use the same to enrich our learning. Last week's launch has led us into this week's first week's attempt for us to demystify entrepreneurship to our students. All right. So today what we are trying to organize is about you learning from experts their journey. So starting a business is like planting a sapling. First, you have to invest your time and money, and then you must take care of it while expecting nothing in return. But when your startup blossoms, it makes all the patience and hard work worthwhile. All right. However, not all the saplings which get planted, grow. The reason many of them die maybe in 1 to 2, 3 years is because of the lack of expert advice that these startup founders receive. So experience of seasoned entrepreneur is very, very precious. And no matter how much of theoretical models you study, you simply can't replace experience that they have gained through actually doing the work, failing and succeeding. So today's session, where we will have them tell us about their journey, you will learn through their experience. And I'm really looking forward to listen to them and you as students to learn about the first steps. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, learn from an entrepreneur's journey. I welcome all the three members on the advisory boards, Mr. Manish Khanna, Mr. Nakul Bhosle, and Mr. Mulchandani, to have joined us, agreed to be a part of this SAHAS event, where we have combined Pune as well as our Ahmedabad campus students. So we have our current year 3 students and outgoing year 3 students joining in and waiting to eagerly listen to your advice. Thank you so much. I would like to call upon my colleague, Mr. Debashish Ghosh, who is the director at IIHM Ahmedabad, to convey his opening remarks.
Members and dear students of Pune campus and Ahmedabad campus. I have the pleasure of welcoming you to the first edition of the SAHAS webinar conducted jointly by the Pune and Ahmedabad chapter. It was only last week when the Entrepreneur Cell was launched by the great visionary, educationist, the chief mentor, founder of IndiaSmart Group and CEO, Dr. Suborna Bose. Entrepreneurship is more than just an engine of economic growth. It is also a factor that makes communities more vibrant, inclusive, and secure. Entrepreneurship and innovation are central to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision for transforming India. As Mr. Winston Churchill has said, a pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. In this era of the pandemic, to make the students of IIHM self-reliant, our chief mentor and CEO, Dr. Suborna Bose, has introduced SAHAS to influence students to come up with innovative startups. It's not going to be very easy. As Dr. Bose has rightly said, it requires a lot of grit, lot of passion, lot of perseverance, lot of sahas, courage from the heart to see through the business venture. We need to learn from experience, and that is why we are having this webinar to introduce the students to our advisory board, to the members of the advisory board who can mentor and guide the students with their experience. Today we have some eminent speakers amongst us. Mr. Manish Khanna, Mr. Anil Mulchandani, and Mr. Nakul Bhosle, who will be recounting their experience so that the students can learn how to go about building a startup. So without wasting time, let us commence the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I would like to now call our chief mentor and founder of International Institute of Hotel Management, Mr. Dr. Suborna Bose, who has joined us. He's the person who's the man behind SAHAS. He's the founder of International Institute of Hotel Management. He eats, dreams, sleeps entrepreneurship. He is the true example of someone who has built up the hospitality education empire. And today he joins us in this webinar. Welcome, Dr. Bose.
Yeah, very good morning to all of you in Pune and Ahmedabad on this lovely Saturday morning. So And a very good morning to all our Board of Advisor in the western part of the country. And it's always a great pleasure to come and speak on this subject of entrepreneurship. And this is the second edition of our endeavor to get the students involved in the SAHAS, because we had a launch, and I think what we have done in the launch is to introduce the concept of the entrepreneurship for the IIHM students. But today and henceforth, we are looking at involving more people from the students population who will be coming and who will be joining the journey for their own entrepreneurship ventures. I think it's always such an exciting time when you hear out very exciting ideas and business plans of the students. And as we say that at IIHM, possibly the first institute in Asia, but then certainly the first institute in India who have got this kind of initiative for hospitality student. We had this for quite some time for the students in engineering and management through our IITs and through our IIMs. But for the hospitality students, I think the first time it's happening in India, that Center of Excellence in Hospitality, that's IIHM with all its 10 campuses, actually coming forward and have formed a corpus of 1 crore and now looking to enhance it to 25 crore quite quickly. And it can be as quickly as 2 months from now. We are actually quite fortunate that we are getting the endowment from our friends and alumni who are coming and contributing to the endowment, the SAHAS endowment, so that the funding to some extent as seed capital, either in terms of equity or in other way, can be given to the students. So it is not just only about mentoring, which is a very important thing, or guiding, but also in certain cases, in appropriate cases, the Board of Advisors will go through the ideas, and if the ideas are good and market worthy and appealing to the Board of Advisor, they should be given a seed capital funding, which is in terms of the equity participation. And this will really help the young student, because this way the project can kickstart seamlessly without much of blockades, roadblocks, and it will not falter because of the fund, especially at times like now, where generating funds from banks and PE funds are almost impossible. So that's a big role that IIHM is going to play. One is to mentor the student and to act as a guide and to give the kind of a guidance that they all need to, as we all was discussing in another launch, they will almost like a traffic light where we can show them the red, green, and the amber, that these are the right path for the journey for entrepreneurship. And I could see a lot of students today, which is such a delight to see the students participating, because the entire SAHAS initiative is done for the students. So right now at IIHM, among many things that we do, this is the thing that we are concentrating very proactively. SAHAS is the most important thing we have done ever since we are born 27 years back at IIHM. The commitment to the student is the paramount and number one. And that is the reason that this particular SAHAS initiative has taken an absolute front seat, especially in terms of the COVID-19, where the students of the 2020 batches are struggling for the employment because of the industry is not doing that great, and it will carry on doing not very good for next 6 months or so till the end of this year at the least. And so we will tell the students to come up and do something of their own, come up with the idea, give the idea to us. Our team, which will be guided by the Board of Advisor, will come and refine the idea, listen to their ideas and possibly give them some good advice how to go about it, get a business plan in place, get the financials and numbers in place, and if and when required, there would be funding as well from IIHM SAHAS Endowment Fund. And this is what IIHM is doing for the student. The commitment to the student is absolutely top class, and I think unparalleled in the history of hospitality education in India. So we are not just an institution that we teach and we give degree and we just leave the student like that. We are here to support our student. We are here to make sure that they can dream an idea which can be converted, implemented into a reality. And we, along with our team of internal members of the team, and of course with the guidance of the board of advisors who have been drawn from the most eminent people in the industry all over India, we are trying to stand beside the student, each of the student, and try to make sure that they can do something in entrepreneurship ecosystem. And we are there to guide and mentor them. And whatever the situation is, IIHM would always be there to make sure that the students, our commitment towards the student is the #1 mission of the institution. So today is town of Pune and Ahmedabad, the west part of the country, which are very important because they are the entrepreneurship hub, whether it's Mumbai or whether it's Ahmedabad or whether Pune. These are the places where the entrepreneurship have seen such great momentum over the last 50 years. And they are that 3-4 cities. Of course, they have got Surat as well, Nagpur. They have actually shown and led India in the entrepreneurship drive. And what better place it can be for the students to start off their own journey towards making something of their own. So I think it's very important for the student to understand that they are the biggest benefactor, they are the biggest beneficiary, and we are there to help them out whenever required. And this is one initiative which is a kind of a huge commitment from IIHM. I'm sure that all of us are absolutely committed to take it forward, make it a big success. And for that, we will be meeting quite often like today, and we'll be discussing what else we can do, what are the best things that we can bring on ground, on table for the student, what all great ideas that can be translated into a real execution, and how the team at IIHM actually stand beside the student and work as a team and help him or help them as a group, if they're a group, that's even better, to realize their dream ideas into a successful business venture. So that's basically what the initiative is. It's we are having a planned global conclave in the month of July, where we are planned and been committed by some of the biggest name in the world who will be coming and joining this global virtual conclave, which will be of immense help for the student, because for the funding, it is the funding have not stopped. Let me tell the students who are here that in spite of the COVID, the situation is little bad on the employment side. But if you see the funding, if you have got a great idea, there are still people who are funding every day. Even day before yesterday, I think Baiju have got about $2 billion, $20 billion from our fund manager. So funding have not stopped, because funding is not limited to India or any country. So if you've got a great idea, I don't think that funding is a huge problem. The best thing is that to have an idea which is realistic, which is in tune with today's situation, an idea which can start small. There's no point in getting in the big ocean and get drowned. I mean, start small, an idea which you can grow along with your friends and with the support of the team IIHM at Pune, team IIHM at Ahmedabad, and team IIHM centrally. We all are there to help you. We all are there to guide you, and we all are there to put in fund for the seed capital as and when appropriate and required. And we'll also help you to get even more fund through our contacts and friends in funding. So I think it's very important that all of us understand that it is not just about employment, it's not just about a job anymore, it's all about also getting a great career also as an entrepreneur, which I think like the IITians are doing. If you can see, most of the startups in India over the last 10 years have got, most of them, I'll say about 80% are done by IITians. It's not because they are very super intelligent. It's because they have been encouraged by the IITs. Over the last 30, 40 years, the core faculty of IITs, the core team of IIT, their directors, principal, they all have supported. And so, whereas we have got some amazing people who came from IIT in a job like the CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai, or the CEO of IBM, we have got also the best people who are doing the startup from IIT, whether it's Baiju from Baiju's Ramachandran, or it is from Shekhar from Paytm. They are mostly from IITs because the institution have actually influenced them. The institution have actually given them that kind of an education that made them to refuse employment and job and to start their own. And see, today, most of the startups are actually owned by the IITs. Even if you talk about the Swiggy, which is an hospitality food delivery, it has been developed by 3 engineers. One of them is from IIT and not by hospitality graduates. And so on the similar line, IIHM also wants to play the similar role where we need to encourage our student. We want to influence our student. We want to guide and mentor our student to become entrepreneur as much as they can become an general manager of a chef of a hotel. So both the careers are open, and now it's up to us to see and take it forward. And with that, I think let's open the morning session on this lovely Saturday morning. And we will have a number of sessions like this. And we'll also do a lot of entrepreneurship education for the 2020 and 2021 batches, pass out batches, 2020 pass out and 2021. And I'm sure that we will be able to mentor you so well that you also become as big as Swiggy and Zomato and any other big startup from the hospitality ecosystem. So that's all from me from IIHM headquarters in Kolkata, and over to my friend Rupinder.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bose. That was really enriching. Listening to you is always a pleasure because, when we hear you, it sort of, gets that energy flowing in us, and it really wants us to, start dreaming the way you have dreamt, and you have made it come true as well. So all the students out here who are listening right now, you have to have that dream, and you have to have that ability to, dream and make it a reality. So along the way, you have to learn from the experts. So over to the co-hosts, Mr. Amandeep, Mr. Kunal Maitre, and Tomishra, to take the program forward. And we would love to hear our advisors when they recount their journeys. And, for you, all the students today, for you to learn from their journey is the best way to learn. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Khurana. Thank you, Dr. Bose, for your inspiring words. It's always been, as Mr. Khurana mentioned, it's always been a pleasure, listening to you, and your thoughts are truly inspiring. The vision that IIHM as an institution carries, it immensely means a lot for all the students. Now, starting off the day, before I invite our first speaker, I have a small story. I have a very short story for all the audiences, including the students. So when we grow up, right, and when I was also grooming myself in the industry, we always were told about these slight, small leadership traits. And one of them was that a leader should always be people-centric. Another thing that I used to hear, that a leader should always be, humble, because you need to be in the you should follow the grassroots. You should always keep your feet stuck to the ground, no matter however high you go. I remember I was working with one of the hotel companies, and I used to travel a lot to all the different hotels, and I have had the honor and pleasure of meeting a lot of hotel owners. One gentleman who did inspire my journey, throughout that tenure in that hotel company, and of course post that as well, with a lot of key takeaways. But then these two main key takeaways: first, people-centric; second, being humble and always being rooted to the ground. I take this honor and pleasure to introduce to all of you Mr. Manish Khanna. So I will stop the story here. I will request Mr. Manish Khanna to join us on the spotlight and share your journey with our students and the audiences. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Amandeep. Thank you, and pleasure to be here on this panel on this Saturday. Dr. Bose, great listening to you for your introduction. Also, to this initiative is clearly something which is going to take off and take off very well for the benefit of all the students. I will just give a very brief introduction. So we are from a hoteliering family, which has been something in, I guess, in the blood for now over 40, 50 years probably. So starting with the family, which my father was one of the first few Indians who went abroad to sit and study, and then came back to India to join just starting a family business in Delhi, which was the Claridge's Hotel, which was probably the second 5-star hotel in Delhi or even in India at the time. From there, the family grew up, came into Bombay. My father put up at that time, what was called the Holiday Inn, and now is called the Novotel in Bombay. We then moved on to Goa as a market which was coming up, and we opened a hotel called the Majorda Beach Resort, which turned out to be the first 5-star hotel in South Goa. At that time, there were probably only 2 or 3 other starred hotels in Goa. From Majorda Beach Resort, after that, I finished my graduation studies and came back to India, got into this family business. But then with this whole point of this topic, the entrepreneurship bug caught me, and going back to Goa in 2006, we had a plot of land which we had bought, and it was just lying idle. We decided to sit and start putting up a hotel there as well. So this is a project which I did myself. So got into this right from the beginning, from all the pains, trials, tribulations that one has to go through in a business. And I put up at that time, 24-room budget boutique hotel called Jasmine, which then grew into 55 rooms. So I've gone through the process from planning to starting it to all the problems that you can get through, which we can get into in the discussion later, and then put up this property. Post that, as an initiative, we've also open up another company where we are going to undertake management contracts for hotels, for restaurants, for anybody who needs help in running their businesses. We are going to offer that. So in 2 minutes, something which I've done over the last couple of years. So now the total time has been almost 20 years since graduation, being in this industry, and yes, seen a lot. So if there's something which I can guide and help the students in any way possible, I'll always be here and happy to help. Anything specific we can go through with a little bit later. So this was extremely quick introduction. So let's see how it goes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr.
If I can just come and say, I know Mr. Dinesh Khanna from a very for last 25 years, and possibly you can please pass on my best regards to Dinesh, because we have been in the FHRI committee and all for many long years, and I actually was in a club a couple of times with him when he opened the club. So it was such a pleasure and such a small world. Thank you so much. Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir. Your story was absolutely gripping and very motivating for our students. So up next, we are going to see a small AV where the students of IIHM Ahmedabad are expressing their and excitement about the SAHAS initiative. So let's see what they have to say.
Hello everyone, I'm Kishan Hendoja, just completed my 3 years wonderful journey in IIHM Ahmedabad. I wanted to thank Dr. Subarna Bose for his great initiative of SAHAS. This initiative will inspire young generation like us to become entrepreneurs and be future leaders. In today's generation, it's very difficult to start up any business. Business requires a lot of planning and investment. To overcome these hurdles, SAHAS will help students to set up new business and link with other companies. This will boost and motivate hidden entrepreneur in us. I am very much excited for SAHAS and hope you are also excited as well. Let's join together to make our dreams come true with IIHM SAHAS. Thank you.
Hello and greetings of the day to everyone. I am Janvi Rajan from IIHM Ahmedabad. I feel so grateful to be a part of IIHM family. I would really like to thank Dr. Subarna Bose for launching SAHAS, which is an encouraging entrepreneurship program towards self-reliant India. Thank you so much, sir, for this opportunity and initiative for a student like us who can be a job creators rather than a job employee. This gives me more motivation and strength in these critical days where we all are fighting from one or other situation daily. With that, I would really like to thank Director of IIHM Ahmedabad, Mr. Debashish Ghosh.
The video ended abruptly. My apologies. I'll quickly play it back again. Just a moment. Some technical glitch. Apologies for it. Just a moment. And here we go.
Director of IIHM Ahmedabad, Mr. Debashish Ghosh sir, and all faculty members and of course all panel members for guiding us in every situation they can. With that, I would like to wish a healthy and a safe year ahead. Thank you.
Over to you, Tomishma.
Thank you. So the students seem to be very excited, and I know this is the best time, the right time to be self-reliant and self-sufficient. So our next speaker is Mr. Anil Mulchandani, who is a renowned writer in Ahmedabad and has been writing about tourism, hospitality and food per se since 1992. He is the Secretary of Hotel and Restaurant Association of Gujarat, Tourism Committee member for Gujarat Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Anil Mulchandani is a co-founder of the Food Entrepreneurs of Ahmedabad. So we are truly honored to have you here today with us, sir. Kindly share your experience and your stories with our students here.
Okay, so my story is a very different one. So my family got into business somewhere in the 60s or so, when my grandfather had done his BCom from Sydenham College. He was working as a manager. Then he started a textile mill. My father took over the mill. So my family was totally a technical family, full of engineers, scientists. And I came into this family as a black sheep. So the basic thing was that I did not fit into the mold of being a businessman as such. I was too soft, not a human resource person. So after having joined the family business, I did work at it in textiles, but then I realized that my actual skills lie in being a professional, being a self-employed person, where I'm working for myself. So that is how I started writing. So the most important thing in entrepreneurship that I learned was that find the gap. Where is the niche? There are riches in niches. So in 1992, just after the reforms had happened, the the market was opening up. People were eating out. People were going traveling. People were taking hobbies, bird watching. You know, like it was a new India that was growing, and this new India had no information. So I was a passionate traveler, but all the books I would buy were foreign books. So it was a Lonely Planet, a Rough Guide, a Footprints, a Forders, and I realized that there was a lack of information on India per se. So I mean, from the Indian perspective. So that is how I started my career of writing. So you can say I was selling. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I was selling stories. So my story started with my first article was on Kutch, the handicrafts of Kutch, and from there, starting there, I kept on. Then I got into books. I got opportunity to write in travel guides abroad, and then to write travel guides in India, and then food guide, Times food guide. So the basic lesson that I learned was that the first phase is find a gap. And how do you find a gap? Is by staying informed, meeting people, observing where are the gaps, where is the niche, where is the need. So when I look at the story, I have covered a number of entrepreneurs, right from ports to textiles to hospitality, and a lot in hospitality. So you see that many of them, they find that gap. So look around you. If you find that, okay, dog ownership has increased, a lot of people are now buying pets, a lot of people have dogs, there is a need for dog friendly restaurant or dog friendly hotels. Start exploring what do they need, what is the requirement, how do they, okay, that is the first phase. So your small idea becomes a big idea. When it becomes a big idea, you look for support. So the support comes in this case from your institution, where you are very lucky to get it from there. It could come from family, it could come from anything. Analyze yourself. This is what I did, that okay, I'm not a good human resource person, so I need to do something where I'm working for myself alone. If you're So look at your strengths. What are your inherent strengths? What are your talents? What are the strengths that you can assemble from within your friends, family, and you start. So in this journey, as I've been 25 years plus, selling stories, selling dreams, you can say, making sure that they were dreams that people could actually realize. So very authentic information should be given, and everything. In 2017, I came up with an idea. The idea that came to me was that a number of restaurants that I was covering were lacking information. There was no information available to them. When they wanted something, they were looking. They couldn't ask a competitor, so they were buying the wrong equipment, or they were sort of not doing without something. So that is when I decided to start a social media group. It was called Food Entrepreneurs Associates. And in that, what I did was I connected all the restaurant owners I knew, and we started sharing information. So rather than compete, I said, rather than trying to control and compete, try to cooperate and grow. And rapidly it has worked. A number of restaurants have sourced ingredients through the network. We have been holding a lot of events, lot of seminars, lot of conferences, and that is how it goes. So another lesson that I learned in this journey was cooperate. Meet even your competitors. Don't look upon them as competitors. Try to share the knowledge, share the experience, and rapidly you need to grow with that. The journey is not an easy one. An entrepreneurship journey looks maybe from the outside like a rosy picture, that okay, you see queues outside restaurants, you see hotels growing, but obviously, I mean, if it was that easy, everybody would do it. So I think what you need to do is to make your business plan, your strategies, understand your target audience, make your SOPs, so when you have an SOP, you say, okay, you have evolved back. Now that resort has spirit of the land as its SOP. So you see that once you have that, then everything falls into place. Your food goes according to that, your interiors go according to that, your architecture goes according to that, and you are not wavering from that. So you have a clean and clear path. So I think make your path, make your own road. Don't get into the clutter. Don't try to copy others. Learn from others, but make your own road, and I'm sure that you'll be successful. Thank you. Anything you want to ask, you can ask on the chat.
Thank you, Mr. Mulchandani. Those were some really, really key takeaways that you shared from your journey and from your insights. And I'm sure students also will be benefiting out of it. Before we move on to the next chapter of today's session, I have a quick request for all the students. You may have a lot of questions running through your mind right now. So you can go ahead, put your questions up in the chat. Towards the end of the sessions, we'll pick up questions one after the other, and we would also request all our guests to address your queries. Now, considering the time constraint, we may not be able to answer every question that is put up in the chat, but I would still appreciate if you could just go ahead, put up your questions on the chat. We could then put them in a digital format, send across to all our speakers, all our guests, and they'll be answered in the right format. And with this, let me quickly invite on the screen a student from our 2018-2021 batch. And so when he got to know about the SAHAS entrepreneurship cell, he got pretty motivated. And I will stop myself here. And now I will invite Murtaza to kindly come on the spotlight and share his experience and his thoughts about his motivation of being an entrepreneur. Murtaza, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Amandeep, sir. Thank you so much, IIHM team, for giving me this opportunity to talk about this. I am really excited for this amazing program called SAHAS. I believe every situation has its own impact and influence. Today, in this world of COVID-19 and a situation that we had never imagined, we here have a great opportunity due to Dr. Subarna Bose, that is called as the SAHAS Entrepreneurship Program. I don't call this SAHAS Entrepreneurship Program a program, but a tribute to the need of the country and a massive support towards the cause of Atmanirbhar Bharat. I would like to thank all the IIHM team and Dr. Subarna Bose for this amazing opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Murtaza. Moving on to the next step of today's session, may I now request Mr. Kunal Maitre, my colleague, to take over and introduce our next guest. Kunal sir, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Amandeep sir. Next, we have a person who is adventurous as replacing a cup of tea for a mug of beer for his breakfast. He started home brewing back in 2012, and he's got this art and craft to Pune a few years back. And when it comes to breweries, okay, Great State Alework is the name to be reckoned with. In just 1 year, this particular Pune-based brewery has started serving innovative brews to popular restaurants like the Bombay Canteen and the O Pedro. My pleasure to introduce you to the man who believes making beer is as interesting as drinking beer. Okay, so we have Mr. Nakul Bhosle, owner of the Great State Aleworks in Pune. May I please request the spotlight on Mr. Nakul Bhosle, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Kunal. Happy to be here. I think it's a great initiative. When I was studying, there was no such initiative, and I think if there was one, it would have helped me. Many years later, when I finally decided to start my own business. So it's a great thing that you're doing, and especially sharing experiences from other entrepreneurs has been very valuable to me as I've been through this journey. Unlike the other panelists here, my experience is I'm a very new entrepreneur. estate has now finished 2 years. Of course, it took two years before that to set it up. So my experience is slightly different. It's more startup and in the startup phase. So I don't have a lot of gyan to give, but I can at least, introduce myself and my journey so far. Like you said, I was not from a very unconventional background when it comes to entrepreneurship. My family is basically filled with engineers. We don't have doctors, we don't have CAs, we are just all engineers. I was the first person to do a commerce degree in my entire family, I think from mom and dad's side. After my BCom, I studied, I worked in the renewable energy sector. That was my interest and passion then. Post which I went to do a master's in finance in the US. That's when I got introduced to craft beer. There are 7,000 microbreweries, small microbreweries in the US, and it has taken over, over a course of 30 years. These 7,000 breweries have taken over almost close to 18% of the beer market in the US, which shows the power of entrepreneurship. Where small companies, small entrepreneurs coming together over a long period of time have made a significant impact on an industry which is mainly dominated by large commercial players. I got introduced to craft beer there. I started first tasting a lot of craft beer, followed by started home brewing. So one big thing that helped me in my setup in here in Pune was the fact that I had started brewing beer myself, and I knew at least the basics of the beer brewing process. So that's one piece of advice for anyone who's wanting to start something. Get experience that product, whether it's making it, whether it's working in that field, or whether it's just getting exposure to it. So my exposure started with home brewing. I decided to quit my job and come back to India to start a brewery. After I came back, there were a lot of hurdles. When you have a business idea in your mind, you think of A, B, C, but when you start implementing it, you realize it's actually X, Y, Z. Does not mean you should not do it. You need to be fluid enough to change your plans according to the circumstances, because first it's all in your head. And then when you finally act on it, you realize that a lot of assumptions that you made were incorrect. That happened to me. I came back to India with multiple assumptions of how this will work. When I realized what the constraints are in India, what the laws are for alcohol in India, I realized I had to change my plans a bit. All that rethinking and replanning took 2 years. And after that, I was able to set up a brewery. My business was extremely bootstrapped. It was self-funded. Beer as an industry was not as talked about as it is today, 4 years ago. After Bira and some big players that have come in, a lot of investment interest is coming into beer, but back then it was not as much. So it was bootstrapped. We fabricated all our equipment in Nashik. So instead of going for a consultant, instead of importing equipment, we went local. We found fabricators, good fabricators who've got experience with the wine industry in Nashik, and we got them to design this equipment for us, worked with them closely, post which we set it up. And for me as a home brewer, what I enjoy about brewing is experimenting and making new styles of beers, and we kept that in the brewing philosophy at great state. So far we have brewed beers with a lot of local ingredients. We've had a kokum beer, we've had a sour and salty beer, which is a style from Germany. We have used coconut in a beer, which is a special beer that we have brewed for O Pedro, which is a Goan restaurant. So we use something with coconut for them. We have brewed 28 different styles of beers in our short existence. So I think innovation in this industry is absolutely necessary, and we've been able to be at the forefront of that. Through this time, because of our passion, some really good clients like the Bombay Canteen Group and Woodside Inn and a bunch of others that you all know of worked with us and gave us a chance as a small company. So I think one other advice is your relationships you build with your clients are essential. For us, even during this lockdown, this crisis, we are confident of coming back strong because we have strong relationships with our clients. They are our stakeholders in a way. So we don't look at them as vendors, we look at them as our stakeholders. And those relationships being built within the industry are very important. I think like Mr. Mulchandani said, not just don't look at your competition as competition, look at them also as your stakeholders. So as an industry, we are very close knit. We always help each other out. We're all small businesses. We're all learning from each other. So definitely, if you're part of a growing industry like this, whether it's whether you want to start a coffee roasting company, whether you want to start a kombucha company, any new industry, it's important that you keep your competitors close, make them your friends, because it's collectively, as 10, 20, 100 of you, that you are going to grow and break out of the big chains or the big commercial brands, because they have marketing budgets which you can't compete with. What you can compete with is how you compete with them is to make your own playing field, come together, and one sale at a time, you convert a customer and make the customer realize that beer or coffee can be more than that commercial packaged product that we've all been drinking. It's a long and slow process, but definitely the Indian consumer is very, very, I have noticed very interested in knowing about new things, in adapting to what is sustainably produced, at a small scale, at a local scale. So there is a movement that helps breweries and industries like ours, grow. Yeah, so that's the basic. If there's any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Bhosle. And, so creating and starting something, bringing something from another continent, another country to a country which does not have that culture or that product or that service in existence is truly what Sahas means. It's a courage, it's a risk, it's a decision that you took. And I've always been very vocal about this throughout my career and throughout now in the sessions or through various channels and whatever, that you will not be able to learn anything till the time you don't do a mistake, and you cannot do a mistake till the time you don't take a risk. So to sum it all up, I'll rest my thoughts here that, very well noted, very well said. And moving on, before we moving on to the next session, next part of the session where we address students and their questions, we have a quick video to share with all of you. A little brief about Sahas, a little brief about the initiative from the institute. So now may I request my colleague Saurav to play the video.
I commend the IIHM Sahas initiative. The fact is, you have the opportunity to shape the world like never before. Dream big, my young friends. Think with an entrepreneurial mindset. Leverage the power of technology to solve and scale. Have a growth mindset and pivot. Pivot to growth, pivot to new ideas, pivot to new business models, pivot to new ways of doing things that the world is now enabling you to do today. As a part of IBM's ongoing engagement with the Government of India, targeting young innovators through the Atal Tinkering Labs initiative, some 4,000 mentors and 600,000 mentees will benefit from a unique AI-powered mentor platform. Developed with the IBM Watson Cognitive Engine, the platform monitors mentor and mentee interactions to provide personalized support to those using the platform. Skilling is key. If we want to shape the future, I encourage each of you to skill up. I know the power young minds with the entrepreneurial mindset like you can yield when empowered. The time is now. I wish you all the success. Stay safe, stay motivated. Once again, I want to thank IIHM for inviting me to talk to you. More power to Sahas. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Saurav, for that interesting video. So till the time we get questions. Let me start off by asking one question to Mr. Bhosle. So, Mr. Bhosle, when you started your journey, and you mentioned that there were about 7,000 breweries that you had in US, and US has a culture wherein getting a mug of beer during the day during your work hours is pretty common, considering the dynamics and the topography of the country. Now, when you got the idea that, okay, I need to get into this because India needs this, or probably my city or my state needs this, whatever the idea that you had, I'm sure you also took in consideration the kind of risks that were involved, the kind of societal taboos that were involved, because our society does not accept certain things. We're still getting out of those fractions. So if I may ask you, what was those 3 or probably 4 key factors that kind of motivated you to take that leap and get into this venture and scale it up?
I think the first one, is very personal to me. As I was in my BCom, in fact, I also went to Sydenham College to do my BCom. And while I was there, I was part of a student organization, and I was quite active in, outside of college. And I always wanted to start my own business from that time. So the first point was always looking for, I always had this thought in my head. My father encouraged me because, he was in the service industry all his life, and he always said, think beyond that. So he kind of put that in my head. So the first point was a personal motivation. Second was, the opportunity. I saw that there is a huge opportunity in this particular industry for India. India is, yes, there is a lot of alcohol is taboo, and there are a lot of societal pressures here, India even today. And of course, just in the last 10 years, since the first microbrewery came up in India or in Maharashtra, which was in 2010, just there is such a huge, change in how people are consuming alcohol now, and how wine has become, has come in and has shown people that alcohol is more than getting drunk. And beer is starting to do that, especially microbreweries like ours are also starting to put that. So while there were those taboos, even my family, we come from a very non-alcohol drinking family. There's nobody in our family who consumes alcohol. So while taboos did exist, the opportunity was so big that, like with the population and with our middle class, and that story that we keep hearing of was definitely the second. The third reason, I think, which is very important, is that I could see myself doing this. I could see myself enjoying my life, in 20 years. I could see myself getting pleasure out of doing something like this, which made me realize that I can do this. As opposed to what I was doing then. I had started a job in the US where, how it is. You take a job because you get a job. It's not necessarily what you want most of the times. And I was not necessarily, enjoying that job. It's not what I had in mind when I went for my master's. So there was a gap between what I was doing and what I was supposed to be doing as per my thoughts. Of course, this is when the global financial crisis, jobs were not there, a lot of issues in the US, immigration problems, visa problems, all that put together, you take what you get. So that was, I saw my seniors at work, and I thought, do I want to be that when I'm 45 or 50, or do I see myself brewing beer and selling beer and maybe having a semi-successful regional brewery, if not a national one? That's for time to tell us. So I could see myself. It was that also, that the comfort with what I'm going into.
Adding on, to your inputs, Mr. Bhosle, is, so you mentioned that you had this and you followed your gut, your family supported you, and you were ready to take the leap. Now, what happens is, whenever we start, so since it's a startup, and India is now on the world startup map, whenever any idea, blossoms in someone's mind, the first thing that comes to their mind is that how soon can I start earning from it? Second thing, why would somebody utilize the service or the product that I'm offering? And third thing is that, so now the third point that I have in my research is that either somebody thinks that my idea is the best and nobody can beat it. The second thing is that there are already so many players. Why should I start? Now, how to come out of this dilemma? How to start developing that quick thinking on the feet, which also, during the business also, decision making becomes a very integral process. If you cannot take decisions, you will not be able to succeed. So now, what are those key factors that you think should everyone adopt to start thinking on their feet?
I think if I use my personal example here, I would say first subject matter expertise before you get in. If the more you know about what you're, obviously you can't know 100%, but you need to know as much as possible before you start. That's your prep. You want to run the Olympics, you have to prep for a long time before that. So that prep is very, very important, and learning about that subject is. So for me, it was brewing beer at home, understanding how to develop a recipe. Like it's very similar to a chef. I'm sure there are a lot in our audience, right? Second was visiting a lot of breweries, meeting a lot of people, brewery owners, young breweries, old breweries, semi-old, just perspectives, getting a lot of information. So 2 years before I came to India in the US was just spent on visiting and understanding. And, at some point I felt confident, okay, I know enough. So just, and once you have that information and you plunge, you take that dive, you sort of know how to swim. So whatever comes your way, you are able to tackle it. And you need to have some mentors as you go along, because you will be stuck with certain decisions. And you need to have these people who you can call, who you can meet and say, what do I do next? So you need to be, arrogant enough to take this on, but humble enough to also ask for support and for help, because we don't know it all. I don't know if that covers all the points, but yeah.
Pretty much sums it up. May I now request Mr. Khurana to share his thoughts, and
Right.
he also
So
wishes to.
Thank you, Amandeep. Thank you, Mr. Bhosle. I have a question for Mr. Manish Khanna. My question is, like, if you go through the life story of the Marriott group, they started off, the father, the senior, J.W. Marriott Senior, he started off from a small little root beer stand, and which eventually came into a hot shop, restaurant, small little cafe, which, and he wanted to grow. So you were born into a family who were already entrepreneurs. Now, Mr. J.W. Marriott Senior's son is the person who actually made Marriott what it is today, one of the largest chains. So what is your, dream, being born into an entrepreneur's family? How do you want to, take it forward so that our students can learn from you that, not everyone gets to be a part of a family who are already entrepreneurs, and for that person to, think about entrepreneurship as a natural way of life. So, but then even that entrepreneur grows the, family business into a much bigger business, just like Mr. J.W. Marriott Jr. did it. So I would like to hear from you as to what challenges you faced when you took over, and what are your dreams? How do you want to take it forward?
So yes, one was that I came into a business that was already running, already established. Because I've been born into this, it's something which I decided I would like to continue and do on my own as well. So getting the formal, one was to get the formal education, which all the students are doing here, which will help you, give you that base, because like Nakul said also, you get to know your business before you jump into something. Don't go into something without knowing what you're doing. So one was, it was there, I was interested that this is what I want to do. So getting the formal education, then coming and even working as a trainee in the hotel business itself, and doing a job from do any kind of job. I mentioned this in the session we had once before also, is that one thing which everybody should learn when they're going into a new business is you should be ready to do everything yourself. There is no, if you have an attitude that this is something which is below me and things, you're never going to work. It's never going to take off. So one was that the interest was there. Coming into this business of the two larger properties, that is something which was already happening. I decided to take the step of doing something on my own in the same field, which is where I started a new company to sit and open up the first hotel that I had, and managed to go through a lot of trials and tribulations and open that up. And what I'm looking for, not, I mean, a married type of a scale is of course something which is everybody can only dream and aspire to be there. But I definitely have the intention of I develop a brand of my own. I created my own brand name called Jasmine. And I have every intention of taking that particular brand forward, whether it is properties on my own or it is franchising, management, and taking that forward. So hope to see, we had started, in fact, we signed 3 hotels under the Jasmine name in Goa itself. But COVID came in and then we had a little bit of trouble, but we're going to just continue, pick ourselves up and go from there. So one of the dreams is to take this particular brand forward in the boutique or even the budget space. It's not like everybody needs to have, that you need to be a 5-star and things like that. Create a niche. In fact, I think Anil ji mentioned that earlier also. You have to find the gap, right? Like he made that very aptly, I noted that down, is to find the gap of where there is a need. In India, it should be the organized budget hotel space which needs to grow, because 5 stars is something which everybody wants to do. And then the unorganized sector of, I'm talking in hospitality, is also very fragmented. So if you can sit and take a particular brand, set standards, which is what does a person want when they come into a hotel? They need clean sheets, they need clean bathrooms, they need good food, good service, but it doesn't have to be expensive, doesn't have to be something which is so intimidating that they don't want to enter the property. Do something which has a gap, which has a need, and then just fill in that gap. So that I think is very appropriate that he said. So I'm looking at taking my Jasmine brand, which I spent a lot of time even getting the trademarks and things like that, and taking that forward to others who will need it. So there are a lot of properties in this country that are standalone, that don't have, and who have, it may sound controversial, but who have maybe taken a step of becoming an OYO today. I don't know how good that model is. We can debate that at another time. But sit and look and doing, I will offer you my particular brand. This is the brand which will give you particular standards and expectations of the customer. Meet those expectations, take it forward. So I have every intention of taking that forward that is something which I have done on my own. And I would like to hope that it can get to a point in the future like this.
That was very interestingly put, sir. So basically learning from you, being a second generation of entrepreneurs. So how a person, still needs to work very hard, because I still remember when we were speaking, you mentioned that, one of the first things that a student needs to have is the right attitude, that, no job is a small job. And if I see anything, say, for example, you mentioned about, something lying on the floor and you are passing by and you see that litter on the floor, you will pick it up. You will not say that it's not my job. And you will not say that, I'm having this coat on, so it's beneath my dignity to lift up that what is lying on the floor. So for a student, first thing, that's something which I still remember from our conversation. So, having the right attitude is something which needs to carry on, whether you're from a first generation of an entrepreneur or going into a second generation or a third generation. That's something which we take away. Thank you so much, Mr. Khanna. Over to you, Amandeep.
Thank you, Mr. Khurana, and thank you, Mr. Khanna. Now, Mr. Khanna, if I may ask you one question from my side. So I've seen you working, I've seen you rolling up your sleeves and getting your hands dirty. I remember the new building when it was being built up, and you were there, leaving the luxury of your office that was there in the main building. Now, what happens is that it's very important to be people-centric. It's very important for any business, because you cannot survive without people. You may have good processes, you may have good products, but if you don't have good people, it tends to get a little difficult to survive. at the same time, at the initial startup age, or as and when you scale up the business, when you have to zoom out from the minutest of details, what are your key takeaways to develop oneself as an entrepreneur or as a business leader who knows the numbers, of course, on the fingertips, who also knows, if I have to put it simply, how do you still at this level manage to remember every employee's name on your fingertips? So to put it simple, how have you evolved yourself, and what are your key takeaways to share with us to develop ourselves as, the leader who cares for his or her people?
One thing which, in fact, it's that's too much on me. I rather say that I'm in fact privileged and lucky enough to have the kind of team that has probably maybe understood maybe what I feel and is giving it back towards our customers. So one is definitely getting the right set of people and also giving them that amount of trust and importance to sit and do the job. Because in our, our particular property, which is, we may consider it to be a smaller hotel, but if we look at our feedback that we have from our customers, it is basically that everybody, one of the main things I wanted the team to know is that do not say no to the customer, because nothing is too small to sit and customer asks for something. If you say no, it's not, I don't know, it's not aware, I'm not aware of it, it's not my job, that attitude always continues. One is to never say no to these guys. My thing was I hope to be able to say that I found the right people to get and work on the team. And then I want them to take that responsibility forward. My vision is few things I just want to tell them is the same thing, is to repeat. It's not below your dignity. Do whatever you have to. Never say no to the customer. I gave this example even last time. I'm like, when I was studying in the US, one of my jobs which I was doing as part of my internships was in kitchen stewarding. And I will again give this example to students that kitchen stewarding, people think it's the lowest, most demeaning job that is there in a hotel. And I've said this before, that without a kitchen stewarding department in a large hotel, the entire hotel will stop functioning. That those boys who are slaving themselves from cleaning pots and pans to dishes, they don't give it to you in the restaurant, you don't get food, you don't get service out, the customer does not have his meal, does not go up to his room happy, and he quits and your business fails. So every job is critical. Getting the people, and again, getting the people with the right attitude. And sorry to say this, but if people do not share your vision, then it's time for them to move on. So if somebody does not have that attitude like you, that I'm going to do everything, I'm going to take care of my customer, then it's also time for them to move on. Very important to sit and give the responsibility to your team as well. It's that empowerment which will make a big difference for you, and they will grow with you. Otherwise, if you don't give them the opportunity, they're just going to leave and move on. I think it's very important as well.
Thank you, Mr. Khanna. Very well put up, very well said. Moving on, I would love to invite our director from Ahmedabad campus, Mr. Devashish Ghosh. So he could have some questions being put up to our guests. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much. I have got two questions. One is to Mr. Mulchandani. My question to you is that it's from the student's perspective, that as a budding entrepreneur, what are in their research, what are the online resources or reading materials like blogs, articles, podcasts on startups or entrepreneurship should they consult?
See, to be very honest with you, I think that the most important thing, more than, okay, you do your reading, you look at online resources. So basically the first step is you first have to decide your niche. So because there is so much information available and a lot of it may not be relevant. So I strongly believe is first make your niche, find the gap, decide what is your plan, and then try to fit your resources into that, because otherwise you will be reading something about something that is totally irrelevant. So what I think is, first you understand yourself, what you want, what is the business, what is the gap you see, and you are now moving towards that need. What are the resources you need to know? So the resources you need to know for about, if you are looking at a startup, now a startup is about scalability. So when you're looking at scalability, you cannot be making gourmet food. You may be looking at making something that can be mass produced and scaled up and go into a threshold of 600 CR or something. Or you are looking at a small family run unit as your USP, where people come in it homely. So I personally feel that rather than just reading up online resources, first set your own priorities. Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? Maybe that can decide your business model. And then start looking for the resources. That is my personal advice.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. My second question is to Mr. Khanna. Sir, being from the student's perspective, being a fresher in the industry, what do you think would be the biggest challenge that they would be facing to sustain the business in the initial stages?
Right now, to set up there is potential, of course, to do a lot of interesting businesses. The initial requirement is going to be always capital. It's going to be one of the toughest things that you get. But we made, Dr. Bose also said that capital is now going to be made available to students and things. But that is something which they need to keep in mind, that to have the capital and to also plan it in such a way that take care of contingencies like, unfortunately, what we're all going through right now. You're going to start up a new business, you have a great idea, you will arrange, let's say, seed capital, you will start the work. But please put in something for I wrote this down earlier to say, we used to say that you save for a rainy day. Now you have to change this to say to save for a COVID day, unfortunately. So that is something which is going to be critical for anyone when they're sitting and looking at a new business. Start it, go ahead, it's going to work, but please start putting in small bits into a small drawer on the side, give the analogy that you may need that capital in an emergency.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Over to you, Amandeep.
Thank you, Mr. Khanna. Thank you, Mr. Mulchandani, and thank you, Mr. Ghosh. May I now request Chef Vaibhav Patel to share the screen and ask the questions that he has in his writing. Yes, Chef, over to you.
Morning, sir. Sir, I have a very precise 3 questions for 3 different entrepreneurs. Whatever we are discussing requires a lot of backup and supports and everything. My first question for Mr. Khanna is, what are the challenges young generation, especially the first time entrepreneurs, would face and how you would like to guide them, sir?
In any particular industry, or?
In general, as a business model, whether it's a hospitality or as we are more focused, as we are more into the hospitality or any idea, sir, whatever the entrepreneurship they are taking up.
No, what I just said earlier is something which, and all the panelists have also said, is one, just please make sure that you have a plan. You have your idea is something that you may think it may be the best idea in the world. Just look and see that it is, what are the others doing? Is somebody doing it? If they're doing it, how are they doing? If they're not, then great, your idea will work. Will it, and then take it forward. Of course, organize the capital to start that, so that once you implement it, you don't fail. In a restaurant industry, there are statistics which we know that the first 3 years are critical. A restaurant, if it survives 3 years, it will survive. And then and the statistics from the US, but 80% of restaurants fail in the first 3 years. Because then beyond that, and once they pass that hurdle, they will be successful forever. But it comes back to sitting and knowing your ideas, sitting and getting yourself planned and getting the monies done, working within the rules and regulations. Because again, Nakul mentioned something which is in his field, talking about dealing with excise rules and regulations, probably one of the toughest things. You can put up a hotel easier than you can deal with excise rules in this state and in this country. I actually believe that. So knowing the rules and regulations of your respective city or state that you want to work in, that is extremely important, because your best laid out plans will go completely wrong if you don't get into that. So that is something which is critical as far as the Indian context is concerned. Unfortunately, we have these ideas, we want to put them in, and then the best of intentions will go awry. In my project, which Amandeep knows, when I was adding a new wing, I had the building was ready, and I had to keep it closed for 2 years, because of extra requests from, let me just say, politicians and officials around me, if you can understand. And I didn't want to get into that. I could not open it just because of the kind of demands that were being made on. So you will have to look at your environment and work within that. That is critical. Every student out here has to understand his requirement of his very, very specific market that he's going into. You will make it work. There's no issues. Please keep this in the back of your mind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. My next question for Mr. Nakul is, sir, you're already into the hospitality industry. So for the upcoming hospitality entrepreneurs, I would just like that the students should know that what kind of revenue models they can focus so that the entrepreneurship business can sustain.
My video is not working, but I'm going to do this without the video. I think that's a difficult question to answer. You have to analyze your the industry that you want to get into. There are traditional revenue models, where if it's a restaurant and you obviously have dine in, but with changing times now, for example, with post-COVID world, restaurants will have to adapt and change the way they look at and they conduct business. A lot of people are going to be eating at home. People are going to be scared to step out. So I'll give you one example of our industry. We are industry of about 24 breweries in Maharashtra, and we have an association of craft brewers. As soon as the lockdown hit, we realized that we only are allowed sales through restaurants. That means our entire industry is at risk of absolute wipeout if we don't do something. So we got together and we gave a pitch to the to customers. Sorry, I think I lost you there. I was saying that we went to the excise department 2 months ago, and for once, luckily, they were quite receptive, which is very rare, like Mr. Khanna said. But we were able to convince them that we need an alternative stream of business. Right. So we have now been allowed to sell beer directly to the customer to drink at their homes. So as a microbrewery industry, we have quickly gotten together, we had adapted, and luckily the government has helped us in that adaptation. Right. So it's difficult to answer that question. It's very case specific, but just need to be open to pivoting and adapting to second and third revenue streams. So also that you're not, all your eggs are not in one basket like it was for our industry until very recently.
Right, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Sir, the last question for Mr. Mulchandani, sir, I would request your guidance, like the students and today's youth come up with various ideas and thinking that this would be successful, or they want to do it and they get into it. So I want to have a specific highlight how they should not underestimate the demands of business in whichever field they are going into it.
When you are in college, the world is your oyster. You think that everything is very cut and dried. You see the restaurant has long queues, the hotel has occupancy, online is working, deliveries are going on. like even Nakul said, I think quite a few people have said that on the ground, what you think is ABC, like Nakul said, is XYZ. So it is very important. You are risking money, you are risking your career. Like instead of taking a job, you are getting into an entrepreneur mold. So it is very important that you really know that this need is there. So if you say, okay, you meet 100 vegans and you say, okay, I can start a vegan restaurant in Pune. But are there enough? Because if you're looking at a restaurant, you require at least a certain number of tables, a certain number of loyal customers who are coming every week or every day. Say you're looking at, say, 4,000 customers a month. Do you have that many or do you not? So when you have identified your gap, that okay, this gap is there. So you say, okay, earlier people had ayahs at home, now they don't. They require child-friendly restaurant or child-friendly hotel or a delivery service for children's food, whatever, pet food, whatever model you have seen in the food and hospitality industry. The second thing is whether whether the demand that you are seeing is sufficient for your business to sustain. Are there enough players? Are there enough buyers? Are there enough people to get into it? So your business plan has to be very clear, allowing for contingencies, whether it is because everything from weather to war to pandemic can affect your business. So allowing for contingencies, you have enough contingency fund to see through a bad time, a cyclone or a COVID or an earthquake. Or in Ahmedabad, I remember that we had the riots in 2001 when I had no work because people didn't want articles on Gujarat. Like, people are not traveling there. So do you have a contingency fund? So, and what are your strengths? Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? Are you technologically inclined or not? Okay, maybe partner with people. So if you say, okay, I am weak in technology, maybe I can partner with someone who is good in technology. I am good at getting along with people, but I am not good at accounts. So partner with people, get people together, and then your model then has to be put in place. So you have your pilot model. If you're looking at scaling up, it's like a designer. Designer makes a pilot model. You're making a pilot model and then you're multiplying it. You're not looking at scaling up. You want to do a boutique kind of business, a gourmet kind of business. Then again, you have to look at your market, at whether you have a market size enough for that to sustain, because finally you have to pay your bills. Your electricity bills at home, your electricity bills of your establishment, your phone bills, so finally your business has to pay your bill, right? So I think what looks easy, just looking at it, is not easy when you're on the ground. So pick up all the knowledge you need to meet people, see, look at different examples. Again, going back to the question that Director Ahmedabad had asked, Mr. Debashish, maybe not only online resources on startups, but also reading stories of how a Maggie made it or how a McDonald's made it. So look at different models and then go for it. So all that glitters is not gold. I mean, that's a very old and cliched saying, but it is true that all that cliche is not true. You see something, okay, you see there is a gap for luxury mithai. People need hygienic, clean mithai for weddings. You want to put up a startup for that, or a shop for that, or a boutique shop for that. But I mean, like, you have to have your maths right. I mean, simple. That's very important.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for the insight. Over to you, Amandeep, sir.
Thank you, Chef Vaibhav, and thank you, Mr. Moolchandani, for your insights. Now, one last question coming up for before we move towards the closing note of thanks. So this question is a very common question. It's a very basic question. So I would really like to put it across to all our three guests, because this question has a very broad perspective, and my intention is to get an answer from all the various perspectives, right? So to put it more simply, now the question is, if one has to get an idea of a startup, so if one has an idea of a startup, how should they understand the market economy first and supply chain management to kind of start working on the plans? So may I request Mr. Manish Khanna to open this question, please?
One is just to take Mr. Muchandani's thing forward also, is that please don't stop dreaming, because this whole talk is about trying to talk about the spirit of entrepreneurship. I just made some notes earlier to say that this generation is the one who's going to take us forward into the future. So they will have ideas which may be wacky, maybe creative, maybe please take those ideas forward. Just don't forget that, because your ideas may just literally come up with something which nobody has ever thought of before. You may also take an existing process and do something new and different with it and make a change. So that is extremely important. So it's taking these things, just be sure that you do your research well, because you should not, we don't want you to falter. I'm just repeating what I said earlier, Mandeep, because it is a way, you do your homework, find out what is there. I don't want you to get into a situation where I didn't think of this. Again, I'm repeating, it sounds repetitive, where local rules and regulations are critical, because that is something which can work. See, a service industry is going to be, we all know, is going to be very, very specific. Your customers' likes and dislikes may be different in a state to state, whether in a community or not. But you have the right attitude, you have the idea, please take that forward. There's so many things to do, again, in the COVID world or the post-COVID world. There are new, right now we're all trying to sit at home and figure out how to go shopping. Online has become the biggest thing. And we as hotels, our operations are closed. They allowed us to do home delivery. Now, cloud kitchens is something which is going to grow. Everybody knows of the Swiggy and the Zomato, and it's reached all the different towns, which is a fabulous idea. So please grow that business and see how to take that forward. You can have a space, 250 square foot space, and you can have a fabulous cloud kitchen, which the customers are so happy that you will do fabulous business. And that is something which has much lesser requirements, lesser hassles to deal with. So, I keep taking your ideas out there, but just take cautious steps. Anilji also mentioned that you should make your plans so that you're not going to sit and falter, and please, that contingency has to be kept there. I'm just going, it's something which is so important for the kids to know today.
Thank you, Mr. Khanna. Very, very rightly said. Now, sharing the same question with Mr. Nakul Bhonsle. So, sir, Mr. Bhonsle, what are your thoughts on understanding the market dynamics? So, how would you suggest that the students should start working on their plan and planning, to get into the water at the right time, or probably even if they enter at the wrong time, how to get out of it?
Yeah, I think like Mr. Khanna has said that, research is key. Do your homework, understand what you're much as possible. And to add one more thing, try your idea out, pilot it somehow in some small way. When I started home brewing and I thought of this idea, first I got a lot of my friends to taste the beer. I thought, let's see if they like my product. Is it just me who thinks this is a good product, or do people like it? Can there be demand? And that was one small way. Find small ways to just make sure your assumptions are not incorrect. Firstly, identify your assumptions. You'll be making hundreds of them. Identify 5 or 10 key assumptions which are absolutely necessary, critical to your success, and just make sure that those assumptions have been tested in some small way or the other. I mean, we don't have the resources as startup entrepreneurs to hire market research agencies and pay them money to test your idea, but you could do. I'm sure there are innovative ways to validate your assumptions. So that's one advice that I would give.
Thank you, Mr. Bhosle. Over to Mr. Mulchandani. Sir, what are your thoughts on this question on understanding the market dynamics and planning for a better supply chain management?
So I think personally, I think like I said earlier, make your own road. So you are basically making your own road. So once you have done at least a certain research, obviously sometimes your idea may be innovative. So when you are looking at your innovative idea, you have a dream, you want to scale it up, or you want to make it at least a ground reality. So your reality is there. So your reality is that, like I said, the market, is the market sufficient to sustain your business? Like if you're looking at 500 customers a month, are there 5,000 potential customers? So that when a competitor comes up and these 500 move, you have another backup. That is very important. Throughout the thing, more than I think market research and all that, okay, you are sure of your product. You have also maybe started small and got it tested in your circle or whatever. Then you have to create a market for it. So if you look at a lot of things, there was no market for something, and a market has been created. So once you have seen a niche, you see a gap. You are now moving it to fill that gap. And when you are moving to fill the gap, you have to convince your customer that, yes, this is a gap and please move in, please take my product and fill it in. So I think that is very important. Your supply chain management, again, your back end. So, so if you are looking at, let's say, burgers, then you're looking at bread. So your entire thing, what kind of products you're going to require, and whether those are available or whether you need to make them. Look in the mirror, decide this is the business I am in. Don't try to do too much. What happens where I've seen restaurants fail, the restaurant starts, it specializes in Indian food, which is the specialty. Then two customers come in, want pasta. So you add Italian, you add cooks to that. Then two people come in and say that we don't have this, and then you go on adding. So you just keep on multiplying. Then you see this is not available, so you start manufacturing it yourself. And finally, you spread yourself so thin, so fast that your resources are stretched. So work with your resources. Your resources are what money you have, what you have inherited, what are the skills that inherently come to you, what are the skills you have developed in the course of your education or your experience. Measure your resources to yourself and work within those. If you overstretch yourself, if you try to grow too fast, spread yourself too thin, get influenced by the market. I'll just give a simple example. I went to a cafe which was doing well. Now he told me that those kids don't bring their parents because their parents want roti sabji. So I'm going to hire an Indian cook and make an Indian division. So I told him, don't do that. They're ready to eats available. For just those 10 clients, just keep those ready to eat. So they have their dal bukhara or they have their, ready to eat, just sufficient, because that's not your target market. So I say, once you have identified your target market is the young people coming, this is your additional business, or this is your business that will draw more customers in. So I think the most important thing is measure your resources and work within those. That is most important.
Don't try to please all the people all the time. You can never do that.
Yes, you cannot. You cannot please all the, and you'll just stretch yourself and make, and not be able to give quality, not be able to give any time.
Thank you so much. Very well put up. So I couldn't agree more with all the thoughts that have been shared. Now, to sum it all up, towards the end of it, I really wish to thank all of you, all our esteemed guests and mentors who have taken out time to join us for this kind initiative. I have, again, from my experience, I've realized that most of the times it's not financial support that someone needs. Most of the times it's a moral support that anyone needs. We being humans, we are emotions driven, and our emotions need a little bit of pampering, a little bit of mentoring. Somebody who can just give us a pat on the back and tell us, hey, don't worry, just hang in there, I'm there. So thank you so much for doing that for our students. Now to thank all of you once again, may I request Mr. Rupendra Khurana to share the screen to be on the spotlight and thank our guests. Sir, over to you.
Thank you so much, Amandeep. Thank you, Mr. Khanna, Mr. Mulchandani, and Mr. Bhosle for coming in and today sharing your journey with us. So what key takeaways that we have from listening to your journey, learning from a phrase which Mr. Mulchandani talked about. He talked about find the gap. So for all of you students, every challenge is an opportunity. So what Mr. Mulchandani mentioned, that when you see an opportunity, like you gave an example about, if you see that your customers are bringing in dogs. So, if you have a restaurant, so you could make it a dog-friendly restaurant. So it's an opportunity. So you are seeing what the customers are looking for and you're trying to create, but then not at the cost of stretching your finances or stretching yourself too thin, as he mentioned. You really need to be careful about it. You need to be sure that, do you really want to do it? Is it what you wanted to start out to do? So it's something that you need to really think about before you start spreading yourself out too thin and in the process lose out on your key identity. Of course, not at the cost of losing out on innovation. So it's important that you remember that innovation is something that you need to bring in every time, because your customers would possibly, if you are running a restaurant, lose out. They may get bored of it and tomorrow may start patronizing another restaurant who has opened up maybe down the lane, and you really need to be competitive. So innovation is definitely there, a part of being an entrepreneur. So every time you have to be ahead of the game. You really need to work on that. You really need to make sure that as somebody who is wanting to invest your time as an entrepreneur, you need to remember that there's a lot of hard work involved, and you need to remember you may have 24 hours days where you need to be working day in and day out and invest your heart and soul into that business, because initially when you're starting up, that's what it is going to be demanding. You will not be able to, really have too much of time for your family maybe, but then that's something you need to invest, because if you need to, go and get the fruits of whatever you're planning, you really need to put in the hard work. And Dr. Bose, to this day, if I would say, he puts in a long day. He starts off early morning and I've seen him go on till midnight. 18-hour day is something which is a given for him, and he is driven. He's still driven. So each one of you today, if you're dreaming of being an entrepreneur, also remember that it's not going to be an easy journey. You need to take risks. You need to believe in yourself. You need to hang in there. Of course, along the way, you need to think that, are you getting into the right space? So find that gap. If you see an opportunity, grab it. Possibly you'll be the next successful entrepreneur. So over to you, Mr. Kosh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khurana. It was a very interesting session indeed today. And I would like to thank Mr. Manish Khanna, Mr. Anil Mulchandani, and Mr. Nakul Bhosle for giving their insights, for sharing their experiences. And yes, being an entrepreneur is not going to be a cakewalk. Let's be very, very clear about it. And that we need to put in long hours. We need to be hardworking. We need to have the passion to succeed. That is what is required. That is the fire in the belly. That is what is required. So it is not going to be a cakewalk. and I'm sure the students have by now understood how they are supposed to go about planning their business, because planning is very, very important. And as Mr. Khanna has said that yes, funding is also very important. You should be having a contingency fund for the darker days, like the COVID and all. You should have the contingency fund to ensure that you can ride over the difficult times. So all said and done, we have benefited from today's session. I'm sure the students have benefited from today's session, and we will have more such sessions in the future as to ensure that the students are being mentored and guided. I would also like to thank Dr. Bose for his talk. It is always inspirational, and I would like to thank all the faculty members for organizing this in a very structured way. Thank you very much. And last but not least, the students for listening into the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Over to you, Kunal, to
Yes,
wrap
sir.
up.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. With this hope that we meet again. I'm signing off from here now. Thank you for the team Ahmedabad as well, for all the co-hosts we had. Amandeep sir, thank you very much. And hope to see you all soon again, hopefully next week. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
We can now end the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.